we have an interesting topic. I'm sure it's been on the minds of everyone in this room. How many patients we have today? Okay. Caregivers? So everybody, is anybody not included in that population? Okay. Well, it affects everyone. This 25-mile rule is just, it's indecent. It's an indecent proposal. How about that? So we want to fight it, and I was hoping that Billy Hayes would be here. He's a guy that is a patient. He's a marijuana advocate and a patient, and he's put this lawsuit forth to fight the 25-mile rule. He's going to come and talk about it. So maybe he'll come a little bit later. In the meantime, we have Jerry Chesler here. He is a friend to our 420 community, and he's been working on some medical marijuana issues in his practice recently, and he'd like to share his take on what's going on with the 25-mile rule, and I'd like to hear it. So, let's welcome Jerry.
Yay, Jerry! There he is. Way up here.
Way up here.
Hey, good to see you. Good to see a good crowd here today. I know there are a lot of events going on this weekend, so it's good that there is a bit of a turnout. And before I start on the specifics of the 25-mile rule, I would say that I see a conflict developing between the medical marijuana community and the kind of 420 complete legalization, maybe the normal community. And I think it's a mistake. I think that the people in the medical marijuana business, sure, they like the restricted stuff. It's a chance to make a living, and they all will stand on principle. This is what we got. This is what we got to go with. And the people who want to see complete legalization say, screw that. It should be for everybody. Which I certainly relate to that position. But at the end of the day, the medical marijuana movement is making this more socially acceptable. And it's more prevalent. Marijuana becomes more prevalent in society. And the comparison would be as gay people became more acceptable in the community. And when Ellen DeGeneres came out of the closet on her TV show, it was big national news. Now you have dozens of shows with gay characters, and it's not a big deal. Well, you look at the TV now on Monday night with the raunchy comedies, 2.5 Men and To Mike and Molly. They'll make probably 10 pot jokes a night on that. They have characters who their whole story is they smoke pot. So I believe that it's becoming more and more, it's coming forward. I believe the movements actually complement each other, that medical marijuana does help towards the ultimate legalization, but they put us at conflict with each other, and that very much is evidenced by the 25-mile rule. What you see is that in the absence of dispensaries, patients who do not live within 25 miles of a dispensary are allowed to grow, or in the presence of dispensaries. But if you don't live within 25 miles of a dispensary, you're allowed to cultivate marijuana for medical purposes under the rules. So as maybe you know, that means 12 plants per patient. Caregiver can be a patient, can have 5 additional patients, and that would mean 12 plants each, up to 72 plants for those people. Where the caregiver lives doesn't really matter. The rights come from the patients. So it's the patient. Now, if the caregiver lives right next to a dispensary, he's going to be within 25 miles, he's not going to have the right to cultivate. But his 5 patients, if they don't, he could still have that ability to grow 60, to cultivate 60 plants for those patients who do not live near a dispensary. Right now, there are no dispensaries, it's not a problem, but theoretically that's going to change. And I say theoretically because, believe me, there's a lot of controversy out there. There are lawsuits flying all over the place. Our friends in the state legislature have certainly been busy churning up ridiculous rules and various other impediments that may ultimately lead to more litigation and the shutting down of the dispensary program. But eventually, at least in theory, there will be dispensaries, and this is going to become an issue. So who it's really a problem for are the caregivers who are growing, and the various compassion clubs and compassion organizations that provide to people through that. That's looking to get cut off to some extent as this as dispensaries come and patients who live within 25 miles of the dispensary start losing their rights to cultivate. I will say, for those of you who have invested in cultivation equipment and whatnot, when you get your card, it gives you the right to cultivate for that year. When you renew your card, you should get another year. I suppose the state could get tricky, and when a dispensary comes, they could send you a new card. But my understanding is that you get your card when you renew, and you'll get another year after that.
It's kind of like grandfathered in.
Well, at least you'll get your year on your card. I mean, you're not really grandfathered, but you've got the right. They can't take it away from you. Now that's going to end. There is a lawsuit out there. It's funny, I had lunch with a criminal attorney, the guy whose website is potlawyer.com. And all he does is criminal work. And we need people like that. I mean, that's where, hey, that's facing the state and constitutional rights. It's important stuff. Me and him have been next to each other in court a little bit with the Attorney General on the other side in a civil matter. And what I really see is that criminal lawyers and civil lawyers do things a little bit differently. And they're ranting and raving about government conspiracies and all these other problems. But hey, let's get together and work something out. And me, it's all very polite and it's all very nice on the civil side, but we say black, you say white, there's just nothing, there is no possibility of working this out. There's nothing to talk about on settlement. Again, things are changing, dispensaries are coming, some of those lawsuits may change, but the criminal approach is just different. It's a little more superficial, they don't dig into the law as much. This guy has some ideas on going after the 25-mile rule, and I'd be very curious to hear what Mr. Hayes is doing on that. And again, it's in the interest of protecting his clients who have compassion clubs and compassion organizations that provide the patients. The two theories they're talking about are, one, that your right to cultivate is like a license, and that license has a property right, and they can't take it away from you without some good reason or, compensating you in some way or another. So it's an illegal taking, kind of like if the government wanted to condemn your property to build a road and didn't want to compensate for you. So that's the one argument, is the license argument, and then the other argument is an equal protection of law argument, which is both under the state and national constitution.
Right.
You should be treated the same. I mean, if you live in your house and you're a medical marijuana patient, and your friend lives 5 houses down and his house is outside of the 25-mile radius, why should he be treated differently than you should? So there are some legitimate legal arguments that could be made on this. It's not all pie in the sky stuff, but it ain't easy. Lawyers cost money, unfortunately. I mean, geez, I give away way too much time, but I gotta eat. I want my kids to go to college, I mean, and these other guys, most of these other guys aren't as nice as I am. But a guy like him with an idea, it's a good idea. Going to need another lawyer to kind of flesh it out and do the legal research. A lawyer who's not here today, Gary Smith, I refer to him on a lot of my stuff. I'm more a business guy, I'm a transactional guy. I can tell you a story real well, and I just did that in some pleadings to the state, but there's always this lack of legal precedent, law, things like laws and statutes and things like that in cases, which, in law school, when I used to tell them I read it somewhere, it was never really a good enough answer. I mean, they expect that stuff. So if you're going to litigate with the state over this kind of stuff, you need the research, you need the case law, you need the statutory law, you need the legal authority to make it happen. So, again, you got the criminal guy who sees it one way, you got a trial guy who sees it, who has another aspect, and then somebody has to eventually tell your story, and I might do that a little better than either of these other two guys. So if there really is interest in fighting this thing, and like I said, we know there's one guy who's doing it on his own already. I gave the information to Rain, I forwarded on to the association here, that other lawyer's information, and he's very interested in dying to see the pleadings on this stuff. And if you really want to fight it, you're going to have to raise some money and figure out how to do that. But I will certainly be available, despite the fact that, I'm working with dispensaries and the other side as well. As an attorney, as a business attorney, a transactional attorney, I want to see transactions. I want to see any of you finding a way to make a living at this, whether it's through compassion clubs or through dispensaries. And at the end of the day, I want to see the end of marijuana prohibition. It's one of the stupidest things in history. And I can't believe that in 2012 we're still talking about this. But in 2012, suddenly we're talking about contraception again as well. So it seems like we're going backwards as a society. It's just unbelievable. But yeah, at the end of the day, I want to see all of you making a living, finding a way to make a living at this. I want there to be transactions for me to be involved in. And then, of course, the good things we do. I mean, you see to the patients what a difference pot really makes. And then and the awful side effect of maybe a little feeling of peace in the world and that things are a little better than they are. It's not such a bad side effect, especially for sick people. And again, everybody else who thinks they should be using this recreationally, I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at prohibition, you look at regulation of substances. We're human beings. We're attracted to certain natural substances. That means salt, that means sugar, that means fat, that means caffeine that we fought a war over in this country once. That means nicotine, that means alcohol, and it means pot too. And all these things are on a spectrum. how you determine that you can sell booze and cigarettes in the supermarket, but you go to jail for having pot is just unbelievable to me. And how it could be that